I think one of the things I'm interested to talk about, and you kind of saying here you do have a propensity to blame us for as the normal people for like things like litter and things like that, but you're blaming us, and saying weak politicians and stuff like that. But I think my point around all that is that this government, whether it's the Tories or Labour, we are no longer in control of our governments, of the people who control us. We've been voting for decades now for governments, different parties who make promises, then will not deliver those promises, and that the idea that we are living in a democracy doesn't really exist anymore. That we live in a democracy, but it's a managed democracy. And a term I've seen recently, I've been watching a guy called Ed Weinstein. He talks about managed reality, which is basically the reality we live, not just in this country, in England and in America as well, is a managed reality where there is the perception that we are in control and we're making our own choices, but we're not. And he uses a terminology which I think is interesting, which is magician's choice. So magician's choice is...
Pick a card, any card, and I make sure you pick the card I want you to pick.
Correct, yeah. So we are constantly, as a country, as individuals, presented with a magician's choice. Vote Labour and everything will be fixed. Vote Tory, everything will be fixed. Do this and we'll immigrate. And then we make a choice, and we are forced into the ultimate conclusion. And I think, the resurrection, as you call it, our survival, how we get beyond this, to me involves the destruction of this non-democracy, of this illusion that we are living, this managed reality we have at the moment. Do you think that's the case? Because I think you're shifting slightly as we move forward. You've always believed that our democracy is our route out of this.
Yeah.
My argument is there is no democracy. There is no our choice. We have no choice. We have the magician's choice. So, does your resurrection involve utilising this democracy, or is it something else that we have to do?
Partly using the democracy. I give lots of tips on what people can do. I'm not at a stage where I want to destroy our democracy. It's taken us 1,000 years to get to this point now. That's how old England really is, 1,000 years old. To get to this point. And all democracies are flawed. Anything designed by man will be flawed. And it's not a perfect system, it just happens to be the best system we've ever created up to now. Destroying and tearing things down is very easy. And we never know what's going to come next. The people who want to tear things down and have that revolutionary trait and that violence will be the people who take over once you pull it down. And they're not the people we want in charge. Look what happened after the French Revolution. Mass slaughter, and then a dictator, Napoleon. We've got to be really, really careful of tearing these complicated systems down because we have no idea what will replace it. What we need to do is fix our system. Just because your car breaks down or the carburetor goes or one of your bulbs on your front light stops working, you don't get rid of your whole car. You fix the problem in the car. And that's what we need to do with our democracy in our country. We need to fix the problems. I think we've got to a stage now where, you're right, people have voted for things and we don't get what we vote for. We've got poor politicians and people have started giving up. And because they can't visualise how to fix our problems, the answer now is, well, burn it all down and let's start again. Our problems, I still feel, are fairly easy to fix. I solve problems for a living, especially social problems. You get a complicated problem like knife crime, and you think, right, what's the problem? What's the real issue? Why they're carrying knives? Blah, blah, blah. You break it all down and you start tackling each strand of that problem. So but someone else will look at the problem and go, knife crime, what do we do? Lock up everybody with a knife.
Well, the last answer to knife crime was ban zombie knives, which is not an answer to knife crime. It's
because knives are already illegal to carry on the street. The thing that's illegal to carry, we're going to make it doubly illegal now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But still don't
We're
send
not
them-
actually going to stop the person behind the knife from stabbing people. We're going to take
Yeah.
away the knife. But you're talking about don't tear down the institution that we've created or whatever. My argument is we are tearing down an illusion because we don't have democracy. This thing you say we built over 1,000 years, for me, it doesn't exist anymore. And I think, one of the, this guy Weinstein, he talks about the plebiscite, the voters, and he said there's two kinds of democracy. The democracy where the vote of the man, it counts and it's important, and then a second type of democracy where basically institutions have arisen from democracy over time that actually control the democracy. And so in America we see the Republicans, the Democrats, we see candidates selected decades in advance to go there. This is why Trump has been such an unusual, because Trump has never been a politician. He's never served. He's never been on the left. He's never been indoctrinated in any of these arenas. For him to arrive and step into power blew the minds of the institutions that sit behind these parties in America. And that's that's the argument why they're trying to kill him all the time, because they don't want somebody in charge who they haven't groomed, controlled, brought in there. And I think you talked about Keir Starmer being selected decades ago by the Labour Party as somebody who would. Angela Rayner being selected by particular institutions in the Labour Party, the unions too. So you have all these institutionalised, driven, controlled democratic processes creating a non-democracy, in my view. So that to me, tearing that down is not an issue for me, because
not an issue for me.
Yeah.
So what we have at the moment is we have our elected politicians who give away their power to quangos, to external groups, for them to make decisions, also for them to take responsibility and take the blame when it goes wrong. In which case, why are we electing you as a politician? Why are you the climate minister when all you do is consult a climate quango, an NGO? Why are you the education minister when all you do is ask a quango what we should do about education? Why have we got you? So we need to get rid of all these external organisations, or dramatically reduce them and take away their powers. And we need to leave the powers with elected officials. Because once an elected official has the power, it means they take responsibility. It means they can be blamed. It also will lead to them taking better decisions and working harder, because they know the blame will lie on them. And if it turns out they're crap, and many will be, well, we vote them out, don't we, until we get someone better in. But at the moment, people who hold power in our country are never held accountable because they were never voted to have that power in the first place. That's what's warping our democracy. Because how do we get rid of these institutions? How do we change that institution? Don't forget, when we give politicians our power, we don't give it to them. We lend it to them with our vote. And we know we can take that power back anytime we like by voting you out. Can't do it with the Quangos and the NGOs and all these charities that are running stuff. They've taken our power and our rights, and we have no say over it. That needs to stop.
And those are the institutions, the civil service, the public sector. My brother, I think I was telling you, he came over from Holland. His wife works for a public sector organisation in Holland, and the story he was telling me about the person who runs the organisation, and it's kind of these people in these senior positions are unaccountable.
Yep.
They can do what the hell they want, basically. Nobody's checking their performance against any metric. In normal business, there are metrics, performance, things. So they're funded by governments, which is our money, Nick. It's our money. All these quangos, all these they're funded by governments. They get as much money as they want. Nobody is accountable. Nobody has to deliver anything. And there are thousands of these places. And it's, people are getting paid fortunes. They're all working from home. That is, to me, it actually makes me feel sick when I think about it. When I know how hard it is in business to make money, how hard you've got to work, how you've got to be accountable for everything. You've got to actually make profit. You've got to generate
how
that.
You put your house on the line.
Yeah.
I'm sure in the early days you had to get mortgages for you put your house on the line.
I had to sell my
Civil
first house.
servants don't put their house on any line. They don't put anything on the line.
Yeah.
And unsackable.
Yeah.
So that's the issue. I'd like to see if you've got the Minister of Education and the Department of Education, I'd like to see that political appointee who we vote in have the power to sack the top few levels of the department. Not all the way down. We don't want them sacking cleaners and sacking people who are being told by other managers what to do. But the first 1 or 2, 3 strands of managers, he should be able to sack them for competence and not doing as they're told. I don't see a problem with that. But our elected officials can't sack anyone in the civil service.
Yeah.
So the civil service do what they want.
Yeah.
Because you can't sack me anyway. That has to change. I think a minister should be able to sack senior civil servants in his department.
Well, I think I think what they should do is change the employment law. So in the public sector, you can sack somebody and they don't have the right to go to an employment tribunal. You should get rid of all their employment rights. Then that
Too far.
No, I don't think it is too far.
Too far.
I think you get rid of their employment rights, because part of the problem is at the moment you can't sack anybody in the public sector. As soon as you sack them, they say, oh, it's racism, it's sexism, I was under stress or whatever. I mean, an example I heard just yesterday, somebody rang in to say they couldn't come into work today. The reason they couldn't come, this is in the public sector, the reason they couldn't come into work is because the neighbour's dog had died and the neighbour needed comforting. Yeah? So they get a day off work paid for that.
Council started bringing this in a few years ago. You can get paid leave now for the death of an animal.
Yeah, but this is the death of a neighbour's animal.
Yeah. Well, they would claim, well, it felt like my animal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And who's going to say that's scandalous?
For an extra day off, I'd kill my neighbour's dog. I don't like animals anyway, so killing my neighbour's dog and get a day off.
So what I'm saying is, and this is you and I will differ. I'm looking for radical change. So apart from the fact I would wipe out the Labour and Tory party and let people start. For me, we change the system. Everybody has to vote. You paid 100 quid to go and vote on voting day. If you don't vote, it's a criminal offence, basically.
Like Australia.
Everybody has to vote. You're not limited to 2 parties, and it's proportional. More importantly, proportional representation. So then because I keep going over this example again. Lib Dems 3.5 million votes, 72 seats. Reform 4 million votes, 5 seats. That is the views. And I think if you brought that in as a start, then people would think we're going to go and vote now. We're actually going to go for somebody we want to vote for. And the second thing I'd do is just what I said: get rid of all employment rights in the public service. Anybody who works in the public sector, NHS, I don't care where it is, employment rights are gone basically. If you're sacked, you have no right of redress basically.
So let me follow.
So those are my two two radical approaches. Very simplistic.
Yeah.
But that's where I would start. So it's bring in proportional representation, make everybody vote, and take away employment rights for everybody in the public sector.
So public sector, all we have to do is ensure they're treated like people in the private sector. So keep their workers' rights, which they should. We just treat them like the private sector. But we can sack them if we can prove they need sacking. Very easy to prove. I've worked in the council. Half the people I worked with should be sacked for many, many reasons. So we don't need to find evidence to sack them. We can sack them if we just treat them like the private sector. So that's how we get around that. I'm not in favour of proportional representation. It's a simple solution to a very complicated issue. If we have proportional representation, it just means that smaller parties, fringe groups, have more power than they have now. Because when we have hung parliaments, they'll be the kingmakers and they'll have more power. Why is that a problem? Because in our country, things take time. So if you want something to be implemented, you've got to either woo the Conservatives or the Labour Party. Over time, you infiltrate those parties, you convince them it's the right thing to do, you get the public on board, and once you've got the public on board, the party then see this as a vote winner, will take it on board.
That's not happening though, is it?
No, so our system's not working at the moment, but that doesn't mean we can't get it working the way it should be working. Proportional representation will take us down a path that will make things a lot worse. Forcing people to vote, I think if you live in a free country, in a free society, you should be free not to vote if you don't want to. I tell people all the time, you should vote. It's a civic duty. I talk about it in the book. People died so we could get the vote, and now you don't even want the vote. But let me put this to you: if everybody was forced to vote, so you would have a large, 20%, 30% of the population who don't vote now, who really don't want to vote, will be forced to vote. All it takes are the political parties to offer them something silly for them to vote for them. We're going to do this for you poor stupid people. And because they're poor and stupid, they're more likely to fall for it. So at the moment, politicians and parties do try to bribe us with stuff at every election cycle. It'd be even worse if we forced everybody to vote, because the people who are more susceptible to that are the ones we would be forcing to vote.
But you're assuming that only poor, stupid people... You're assuming that only poor and stupid people are the ones who don't vote. That's not the case, is it?
It's not all of them, but
I'm sure a lot
they will be they'll be heavily overrepresented.
I think you're making a bit of a flying leap there. The reality is a lot of people watching this now will have not voted. They won't have voted because they've realised it's a waste of time. I think a lot of intelligent people don't vote at the moment.
Lots of people don't vote for many reasons.
Forcing people to vote won't work unless you have proportional representation as well. Because otherwise you'd end up with the same situation where they've got to go and vote, but they can only vote for Labour or Tory. So we'll vote Labour and look at the mess that's in. I think it's interesting. It's interesting because I can see what you're proposing in your book, and I can see you're looking for change or whatever. But I think my view now is the system is so broken, and I do get furious when I see how our money is wasted. When I see how we're going to talk about that later today, I'm getting more and more angry now about how all this money that we are generating in tax and everything is being spent and wasted by these people who are in power, who do not follow our wishes, basically. And I want everybody to get angry about it, and I want a radical change in this country. Whether that'll happen in my lifetime, I don't know.
It will. It's coming.
Yeah,
it's coming.
I think so. Hopefully. Anyway, so we moved on. So, ladies and gentlemen, all good bookshops. Well, sorry, on Amazon.
All Amazon bookshops. Nick Buckley, England's My England.
And the answers to everything are in that book. By the sound of it. It's from what I can't wait to read it.
Did you enjoy that video? I think you did. Come on now, hit that bell, subscribe, comment. Let's build this channel. I need more followers. I need more subscribers. Be part of the journey. See you soon.